There, we're on.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of Q&A with John Worthington. I'm the question giver, I suppose, or asker, Paul Grenci. Nice to see everybody. John, how you doing today?
I'm wonderful.
Fantastic. I was hoping today that we could take another look at this program theory topic that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
From a slightly different perspective. You ready?
Yep.
Okay. I've heard it said that program theory is a good example of an effective theory.
Yeah.
What's an effective theory?
An effective theory is a theory that works, even though it may not actually define what it is that it's doing. I think probably the most common one that we have is gravity. Pretty much we say gravity pulls us down to the center of the earth. Okay, we're looking for gravitational pull and all that kind of thing. And that it's a good theory, but in terms of time and space, it doesn't really hold up. In terms of time and space, we're all traveling in a straight line through space and time, and that the Earth is, and we are, and the Sun is. Everything in the universe is traveling in a straight line. However, because of the mass of the Earth, it actually distorts or bends space and time around it. And so when we're traveling through our straight line space-time, we're crashing into the Earth. We're actually making a turn into the Earth. Mm-hmm. It's fairly easy to consider it if you think about the orbit of the Earth around the Sun, because the Earth is actually moving in a straight line, but then so is the Sun. But because of the mass of the Sun, the Earth is orbiting the Sun in a straight line, although the straight line ends up going around and around and around the Sun. Because space and time are bent or distorted, or they say it's bent around the Sun. It actually produces a warp or a bend in space and time continuum, and so we travel in a straight line through that bend. It makes us go around. Kind of a goofy thing, but it's really what's happening.
Okay, so hold on. People are listening to this. And, it's not an unheard of conversation, but some folks are going like, boom, like, okay, so that's a lot of technical stuff.
Yep.
But I think where you're going with this is our basic assumptions about gravity as pulling us down to the center of the Earth. Pretty functional.
Well, the calculation apparently would be exactly the same, no matter if you were traveling through space and time and being bent into the Earth, or if you were falling down from an apple falling off a tree to the Earth. It's the same. The calculation is the same. The speed's the same. The pull's the same, or the push is the same, or the traveling is the same. All that is the same. So for all intents and purposes, if we measure the effect of gravity on a falling body or on a stationary body, then we can calculate g-forces actually, and we do, and those are accurate calculations. There's nothing in error with them. The same thing can be said about program theory itself. There's no way that it actually covers all of the nuances and the considerations that would have to go into programming itself. However, in terms of it being an effective theory, it works just fine and lasts a really long time. So we can treat it as true. Okay, we can treat it as true. It may not actually be as true as we treat it, but that doesn't mean that the calculations are going to change particularly either.
In other words, it's still effective to use when we're talking about adjusting our own thinking processes.
Well, not only our own thinking processes, but in terms of observing other people's or other thinking processes, whether they're people's or anything else. The effects of thought are the same according to the theory as they would be anywhere. So that's the reality. In the program theory class that we talk about, we try to limit that thought processing to the human biocomputer, and so it's a little bit limited, but it applies to dolphin brains and elephant brains and chimpanzee brains the same.
Big groups of people too, right? And
So that,
businesses and dyads, just to
yep.
tie it on. Right.
If there are brains involved, then all
Right.
these things pretty much that's how they work. It's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's just it's just a it's just a thing that's there. And so when we talk about it in terms of effective theory, what we're saying is that, look, we may not understand all that we need to understand about this, and there's certainly going to be people that are going to get into it much deeper. But in terms of being able to make the basic calculations that we have to make in order to figure out where we are and what we're doing, that works really, really, really well.
Okay, so I've we've seen a number of classes where folks have some trouble accepting this concept as try something, treat it as true, right?
Yeah.
That's really all we're asking to do. And we're saying, if you understand, if you learn this material and you start to apply this material, whether you believe in it or not, you might actually see some effective results in analysis.
Well, okay, let me see if I can say this differently. I can't see air. I just can't.
Right.
I've looked and looked and looked, and I'll be damned if I can see it. I know it's there. I can tell that it has effects and all that kind of stuff. I can't see it. It just blows right by me. I just don't see it,
Right.
Okay, but I'll tell you something. You have a better alternative than that thing that I can't see in terms of breathing?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right, okay. So, it's an effective theory to say that breathing air is vital to life. Okay, I mean, that's an effective theory. Try breathing water in its place. It doesn't work the same. It just doesn't. Okay. Okay, there isn't a liquid that we can breathe. I'm not really into it because it seems to be hard on the lungs or something, but there is. It has high oxygen content and it works. But we don't find that out in the ocean. If we can find that in the laboratory, maybe, but that's about it. But it's an effective theory is that we have to have air to breathe. Okay, that may not actually be true in all instances, but for all intents and purposes, we can damn sure treat it like it's true. Okay, so I mean that's one of those things. Okay, I can't see thought either, and I'll tell you something else can't be seen. You cannot see your consciousness working. I don't care what you say to yourself about what you're thinking or what you think thought is. You can't see consciousness working. Nobody can. It can't be seen. Are you telling me that you're not conscious? You can't see that.
Just because I can't see it, right?
Yeah. Okay. It doesn't make any difference whether you use logic or not. It's still there whether you can see it or not. Hell, it doesn't make any difference. So, people who say my mom used to tell me that when she said, there's people who just cut off their nose to be angry with their face. And so, yeah, I guess that's true. They want to get even with their face, so they cut their nose off. And so it doesn't work very well, but okay. I don't mind that they do that. That's the same thing about somebody who ignores an effective theory. Well, okay, I'm not mad that they ignore it. I'm kind of amused that they ignore it, and sometimes I even feel a little bit of pity for them because I see some people who, if they could just get a couple, 3 pieces of program theory in a place where they could use it, their life would be way lots easier.
Yeah.
There's a client that we have that, well, he's not a client, he's a client, I guess, but he can never ever take that step to say, okay, I'm going to pick this up and use this idea of programming. He can talk all about it. He can say that he understands it. He can say all that kind of stuff, but he can't use it. I mean, he just simply cannot figure out a way or see how it applies to him. He can talk about it. And he can remember all the parts, but apply it to him? No, he just can't do it. Now, I don't think he's a bad guy, and I don't think he's doing anything wrong. I just think that he has a funny idea of what understanding means, and a lot of us do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hear you say the word, can't use it. Like he can't do it. Like, can't, right? Like,
Well, if you're not going to allow yourself to do something, you can't do it.
mm,
It doesn't mean that you don't have the potential. It means that you're not going to do it. That's all.
it's as sure as heck that you're not going to do
Yeah. So whether effective theories say he can't do it.
it. Jeez.
I mean, it's true
So,
that it's a matter of willfully not doing it. Okay, I got it. Trust me.
right, right.
I've got notes on this one. But the effective theory is that he can't. Okay, he's not big enough. He's not old enough. He's not mature enough. He's not mentally bright enough. I don't know. He got put in the wrong place in the chandelier. I don't know. I really don't know. And it's like I don't really care about it. I can't waste time to talk to him about it because he can't do it, or he's not going to. Take your pick. And
Well,
so
it's the horse to the water conversation, right?
yeah,
Or even stealing somebody's lesson. Maybe they need to go bang their head on this for a while before.
that's the God's own truth. Okay, I've seen people that it just they beat themselves up and beat themselves up and beat themselves up and beat themselves up about something, and then finally one day they say, oh, this thing is true over here, and all of a sudden it opens. It's like taking the right stick out of a beaver dam. The whole thing will collapse then.
Okay, that's a good analogy. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, Jenga.
Yeah, right. Something just unleashes it.
Yep, and then you got a flood of information or
So,
water.
so that's interesting, John, because I'm aware of some folks that we've been involved with for years and years and years, right? And
Yep.
they come by, they come in, they fly nice and close, they get a good dose of what they're looking for, and then poof, they're gone.
Yeah, and it's as though that they can't calculate anymore.
Mm.
So something that I've noticed in terms of observing what you and I would refer to as the playing field is that the first step in the first thing that we talk about in the playing field is being at one, and you have to be at one through programming. Because if you have programs that are dividing you, then you have to figure out a way to unite those programs. And so one of the things I've noticed is that whenever somebody unites some programming, okay, whenever they, like for instance, they go back into their childhood and they say, okay, well, I guess mom really did love me, although I never really considered that before. She was hardwired to really care for me. So whatever experience I had was her expressing what she considered love to be for me, okay, for a kid and his mom. That sometimes takes a while to calculate because that person has a whole lifetime of that little piece of misinformation, let's say. And so that person has always treated that piece of misinformation, as if it were true or as if it were real. And when he finds out that it isn't, then he has to recalculate a lot of things, a lot of thoughts. And so I've noticed that that's one of the reasons why people go poof. They're here for a while and then they poof away. It's because they need some time to calculate what they learned, or what they think they learned, or an effect that they're I don't know. Maybe it's a learning thing. Maybe it's just a re-remembering of the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Either explanation works the same, I guess.
Well, the funny thing I think is that, after those calculations happen, right? And that's not a very conscious, logical process at all.
Not at all.
After that's done, there's no more thought about that particular topic because the adjustments have been made, right, and you just proceed living your reality as though that was always the case.
Yeah. Well, it always was the case.
Right. Oh, yeah.
when you acknowledge something that's real, it has always been real.
Well, that's true.
It didn't change it because you said, "Oh, you're real, aren't you?" It doesn't change for that.
Right.
It's already real. Okay.
Right. Right.
It's you that's changing. You're saying, "Oh, I missed that, didn't I?" And so what happens then is that when we recalculate that, then we have to change all those memories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes I think what happens is that people just get lazy because changing all those memories requires energy. And I think that maybe
Yeah.
sometimes people don't have enough energy to change them all, so they just keep them in the state that they're in.
I think you're absolutely correct. I mean, maybe it's valuable for a moment to talk about how people are wasting that energy, because, or where that energy gets wasted. I know
Yeah.
B1 is a big part of that, right?
Mm-hmm. Look, we don't talk about energy expenditure really. We talk about it in terms of running or lifting or working or something of that nature, but we don't really talk about it in terms of what it actually is, which is we use energy to reach agreements is what we use energy for, apparently.
It's a finite resource, right?
Yes, it is. And so because of that, if what we do sometimes is that we defeat ourselves in terms of what we about how we go about trying to do something. For instance, I know this lady who recently had an accident, and because of her impatience, she has never allowed the accident thing to be resolved in her mind. So she's going to carry the problem that caused the accident with her on beyond the accident. And there's no real need for that, because all it was that she didn't do what she was supposed to do at the time she was supposed to do it. And so she was in a hurry to do it at another time. And that in a hurry cost her. And so that same thing of putting something off and then being impatient to fix it has continued on past the accident, so that's now costing her as well. But she still can't see it, or she won't listen to it, or she doesn't have the space in her mind to think about it. Maybe, I don't know, take your pick. There's lots of those things that could be true at the same time. I don't know which one it is. I'm not in her mind, but I can see the effects of whatever it is that is there. Her impatience is keeping her from completing the job completely all the way. She's trying to hurry and push it, make it be done before it can. It's like a farmer that wants his corn to grow in a hurry, and he goes out at night and he pulls the little corn leaves up, and then in the morning he doesn't have any corn leaves at all, and
Because it's all dead.
Yeah, he pulled it all out of the ground. Okay, you just can't stretch those corns up. Leave them alone; they'll stretch up all by themselves. They get real big real quick. But you can't go encourage them to grow. You have to be patient and let them grow. You just have to say, okay, come on, grow, little planty. Come on, grow. I know you can do it.
I mean, you're not necessarily idle during that time, right? You're making sure it's got some water and some good soil and good spacing.
You want to keep the weeds out of it. You want to go out and walk around out there and say, come on, little planties, I want you to go. Take your friends out there and say, see, the corn's growing. What do you think? And your friends all say, it don't look like it's very tall to me. And you say, well, don't pull them like that. No, that won't help. So anyway, it's the same thing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So then, let's stay on this energy idea for a little bit. So what happens with folks that aren't one with themselves? Where's the energy bleed, right? What's happening?
Okay, look, let's take this girl with the impatience, okay? One of the things for her is that she knows that she has to be a grown woman, mother type of individual. Okay, she knows that's a role she has to play. However, because she had been thwarted from being, let's say, playing as a child, okay, she's impatient about things. She has never learned to be patient and to accept criticisms or to accept that she could do it better, or if somebody comes along and say, that was a mistake right there, you can't do that. And rather than say, oh yeah, that's a mistake, I shouldn't do that, huh? She defends herself and tries to say, well, I was right anyway. And a lot of people do that. I got it. That's pretty common. I mean, but that's a huge waste of energy, because she's trying to make something real that is not real.
So in this example, a way for her to end up with more energy would be able to let that idea wash over her and be like, oh, I kind of made a mistake there. I was rushing. Why was I doing that?
Right.
You got to start to move through it.
Yeah. Why wasn't I in the agreement? You know what? I got to stay in the agreement here. That's all there is to it. I got to find out where the agreement is and stay in that. I can't be styming and banging around. That is too costly.
Instead of doing what she's doing, which is saying, well, I had a lot to do. I was rushed. Insert defense here.
I didn't feel well. I was fighting the post effects of COVID. I had brain fog. All those things may very well have been true, but nonetheless, because of the impatience, those things made for bad choices, and the bad choices have already now cost this lady close to 3 weeks.
And there's no end in sight because she
No.
hasn't resolved the root issue.
There is no end in sight. That's right. It's continuing to cost her.
You know, I suffered from something similar for a long part of my life. I was always in a rush to get things done as fast as possible, not done correctly, done as fast as possible.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the, for me, particular results of that is I would often try to attempt a job with the wrong tool. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I had what I had. I'm going to get it done with this, right? And I can't tell you how many scars I've got on my fingers and my hands from using the wrong tool to rush through the job. And then I remember one day I stabbed myself in the knuckle with the wrong tool because I was using a knife when I shouldn't have been. And I was like, that's it. I'm done. No more. And I learned my lesson.
Yes.
I mean, 200 times I hurt myself, believe me. But that's what it looked like. I had to finally do it one last time. And I was like, okay, I see it now. I get it.
Wow. You're a real hardhead, Grenci. Did anybody told you that?
Again and again and again. Well, it's not me. It wasn't my fault, you know.
No, of course, no, it was not. The damn tool slipped. I know.
Right, exactly. So anyway, just a personal example of that very same issue.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's kind of the same thing that we do with the tools for thought.
Yeah.
We don't know what the hell they are. We don't have a language to talk about the tools for thought. And that's what, for me, that's why the effective theory of program theory is just absolutely invaluable, because it gives us a way to say, okay, so for this type of job, we need this kind of tool. Yeah. And it begins to give us these tools where we can adjust them. We can make them custom for what we need. There's no problem with that. There's not a secret handshake. No. I wear a funny hat, but I don't require anybody else to.
Yeah, I didn't get that memo.
But there's not secret handshakes or any of that kind of stuff. It's just look, you can either you're smart enough to pick this up and use it, or you're just a dumb fuck and you can't. You're going to die off like the dinosaurs. It's okay. I don't mind. If that's really what you have to do, then that's what you have to do. Yeah. And if that pisses you off, I'm really, really, really glad it does. Because maybe if it pisses you off bad enough, you'll stop and start thinking about what the hell you think with. There's a lot of ways to get there, right? Yeah, there is. Yeah, you betcha. Okay, but and the thing is that, look, I'm not trying to twist your arm or anything, but here's an effective theory that works. Why not try that on, or why not even put it on and wear it a little bit? It's like a jacket. I see people from cold, warm climates going up north, and they get there and they don't have jackets. They don't know what down is. They don't know what that Gore-Tex thing is that breaks the wind and lets the sweat out. And so they don't know what any of that stuff is, and so they freeze their heinies off it pretty much. Well, they don't have a way of talking about all the cold things that people who live in cold climates learn how to talk about, right? Like Eskimos, they have the Inuit. They have like 40 different ways of saying snow. Is that right? Or 100 different words or something, or 130. Right. It's a bunch of different ways of saying snow, of words for snow, because to them, different types of snow means that's their life. Yeah. To me, snow is white and cold and ugly. That's it. Well, you are in Mexico. Yeah, that's right. That's something that you crazy people up north deal with. I don't deal with that. That's exactly right. I gave that up for Lent. Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we had a little bit of a ranging topic today, but I think we were trying to nail down the idea of an effective theory and what we're supposed to do with it. And that program theory is a really good example of this. Yes, and it's like in that class. I mean, there are what 7 or 8 basic assumptions or basic ideas that we cover, right?
Right. Spread out across the weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Do you remember what those are?
You know, did have some of those lined up. Yeah, actually, hold on. Give me 1 second. I do have those. I believe the first one was what is a rewrite and why does it work? So that's what the first week is focused on.
Yes. Oh, and a rewrite is just going back and finding a memory that doesn't work very well, or that was mislabeled, and changing that a little bit. Uh, let's say making it more nearly real. That would
Yes,
be that part. I think the next 2 weeks have to do with assumptions about the brain, right?
that's right. You think you were saying there's 35, 36 different assumptions?
Yeah, 30. I think there's 37, I believe, of different
Yeah, that sounds right.
assumptions.
And
But those, sometimes just going over those assumptions is really, really, really enlightening for folks, because they haven't thought about it. We don't talk about it, right?
Nobody has thought of their mind in the context of these 37 assumptions that go from the simplest to the most complex, in order and build on each other. Nobody has thought of
We
these.
don't think about it. Well,
No.
you'll run into that kind of stuff in advanced language classes and so forth. I think it's semantic classes and
Semantics, right? Syntax, things like that.
syntax and hermeneutics and those kinds of things where people have to study what language is about.
Right.
I think you'll start seeing some of those ideas in that, but commonly no. And,
Right.
and they're not complex. They're just simply things that we have to. Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's true. We really just have to talk them out a little bit and see where they actually take you as you're
Right.
going through them.
The fact of the matter is that driving has a lot more rules than what thinking does.
That's true, especially with the 50 states.
Yeah, well, but not only that. I mean, just driving itself, just the act of taking your bagging your car out of the garage,
Backing up,
backing up, and going down the store, parking, getting stuff, pulling out of the car, going over to drop your dry cleaning off, and so forth. That all the instructions for all that's complicated. Whereas thought isn't that complicated. It's just it's a few assumptions that bring, like for instance, that the brain is a general purpose computer, which means
that's actually one of the titles. One of the weeks is focusing on a general purpose computer.
Right. Another one I think is evasions, right?
Yep. Evasions are a powerful tool for not making change.
Well, the thing is that we don't. Most of the time, we don't realize that we're evading something with some of the things we do. One of the most profound realizations ever about evasions for me personally came about from there's a picture of a statue of a naked lady in that set, I think.
Yes.
And that naked lady is a very it's a perfect lady. Okay, I mean she's got perfect dimensions everywhere. And so the name of that statue is evasion. And the reason why isn't because that's a perfect lady. It's because rather than attending to what we need to do, many times we attend to our baser needs, or our baser wants, shall we say? They're not baser.
It's easy, right?
It's
fall
easy.
into that.
Yeah, it's like take a look at that, and it's like if that was sitting there in flesh and blood, and you were a guy, you wouldn't be paying attention to whatever you had to do.
And that's precisely what you're thinking, despite whatever you were supposed to be thinking at that time.
That's exactly right. It's an evasion, okay? And it's like so, if you. It's not a bad thing to evade things. It's what's goofy about it is to evade it and not know that that's what you're doing.
Right.
Or to be calling it something other than what it actually is. I mean, that's the goofy part. Let's see what else is in there. There's
another one called constructing basic beliefs.
Yes, and that's I don't think people really understand what a basic belief really is. I think that they think that that they're Republican or they're Democrat or they're
right.
We're going to get even with the libs or we're not going to let race theory, all this kind of goofy ass shit. It has nothing to do with any. I mean, it's a word salad is what it is. Okay? And it's not a very. I mean, it's like it has an awful lot of arugula in it, and so I don't care how. Come on, guys. Aruga's not good. You can tell me it's healthy if you want to, but it doesn't taste good, and it's sticky. Like I don't want to eat that. Don't put it on my pizza either, please.
Oh God, yeah.
Okay, I don't care.
All right, so we do have another one too. There's one that's so you think you can do that consciously. That's a fun one. Freedom to program.
Yeah. Consciousness really is not invited to this part. It is for a moment, okay? In other words, you change a program consciously. You do. You stop and look at it and say,
right.
Say, okay, these are the changes.
I got to change that. Right.
Yeah. And so once it's changed, consciousness can't. You don't really want conscious to go access it any longer.
Right. It needs to just run as it's been organized to do.
Yeah, and which is going to do, right? It's just that's what's going to happen to it. Okay, so but still in all, we try to remember it. Okay, I was talking to a lady yesterday who was saying that she was kind of dyslexic. She said, and I said, well, okay, what does that mean? She says, I can't remember things I do in a class. she teaches writing apparently, and so. I kind of found that to be humorous because I don't think you can because when you're working when you're actually teaching a class, you're not using consciousness. You're actually accessing the operational part of the brain and letting that free associate.
Letting it kind of go, right?
Yeah, letting it free associate for the people that you're talking to, right?
Right. Well, it's funny. We review some of these videos, and sometimes I'm like, I don't remember saying that at all. I said that.
Check that out, huh?
Because it's to your point. It's often and doing its thing that it needs to do.
Yep.
All right. So good.
But if you go back to that, if you were talking to somebody in a class and they repeated that same error that you.
I'm back right there.
Yeah, right. Boom. At that moment, yeah, exactly.
I can pick it right up like I never put it down. Yeah.
But if you try to remember it between here and there, forget it. It's not needed, so you're not going to. If a memory is not needed or not necessary, you can't pull it up.
Yeah.
What for? What's it hooked to? What's the address for this? Yeah.
Right. What's the mental? Absolutely right. Yeah.
I need a link here.
Link me.
Yeah. Send me a link because I can't do it otherwise.
There's two more I want to mention, John, before we call it quits for today. The survival meta programs at the super self level. That's a bit of a mouthful. Yeah, it is. That's something that we do not talk about. We simply don't talk about this thing. What a super self meta program or survival meta program would look like. We just don't ever think about that. Your gang example was a good one for me, if you don't mind exploring that one. You talked about how gangs satisfy this need for certain folks.
A gang? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, okay. And that's true because look, let's say that you're gonna have to. This here be all for all you white folk. Okay, so look, you got to imagine a little bit here that you are a third generation Mexican person. That your mom and dad came to the United States from Mexico, and your dad and not your mom and dad, your grandmother and grandfather came. And so your dad, when he was growing up, whenever your mom and dad or your grandmother and grandfather would speak to him in Spanish, he would answer in English. Okay, so the conversations would sound like this. Yeah. Hijo, ¿dónde fuiste? Out.
I think you say gangs or
gangs. Like pandillas. Okay, like street gangs.
Street gangs.
Yeah. Gangs with a G in the end. Not an M. Our gaming guy over here was there a game that we can play? No. no, there's not. Okay, so anyway, then that your dad and mom, therefore, if they're second generation, they know they have to work their patooties off. because they want to get a house and they want to get a car and they want to act like they belong to the United States and so forth. And so consequently, they sometimes don't have time for the kids because they get into the rat race, right?
Mm.
And so the kids, because they're not really Mexican anymore, and they're not really gringo at all, they're brown. They don't belong in white society, as it were, okay? A gang for somebody like that, whether, I don't care what their color is, I'm just using this as an example to explain what the gang does for that kid. That gang gives that kid a sense of belonging and a sense of meaning and a sense of purpose that he doesn't have any other way. And so, boy, you know, maybe the gangs are wrong and maybe they're an awful thing, but you know, I don't know, but what they have to kind of exist, because that's how those kids integrate into society, actually. And even though it's oh man, it's a terrible thing, and see, I mean, it can loop through for generation after generation after generation, and it's an ugly thing. But until we can figure out how to give parents the time to deal with their kids, or to visit with their kids, or be parents with their kids, I think we're going to have a lot of gangs. I just don't see how that's going to happen, because really, what that's a need that we have to fulfill within the society, and
Right.
people are going to fulfill it. Period. They're going to find a way to do that, whether it's in a gang or whether it's in their family or what it is.
Well, there's just, I thought it was such a good example of this, you know, survival meta program at the supra self level, right? It's one level even behind bodily self-preservation. There's more.
Those kids have to do that, really. I mean, it's like the gang is not something that somebody chooses. It's not, the gang doesn't even necessarily choose the person, but there is a vibrational, there's a harmonic vibration that goes on between the needs of the individual and what the needs that the gang itself fulfills, I think.
I think that's a great way to talk about it. And to your point, some families do manage to provide the framework required within the family, right? It's not, the gang isn't required in every scenario.
No, it isn't. Right. And so we know for sure that it's replaceable. It's just a matter of whether or not it can be, or whether or not it is. It's not a matter that it can't be. It can be. And so I think a great example of that is that kid, Tokyo Myers, that won Britain's Got Talent a couple years ago, piano player. Mm. And he rather than being in the gang, he used to sneak into the music schools and have a sit down with the pianos every now and then, right? So because he loved to play. And so that was how he expressed his rebellious years.
Right.
Okay.
Breaking into music school.
Yeah. Right. Another kid that had done homeschooling, I think he sang a song about that you can't take your, you know you're a homeschooler if you take your mom to the prom.
That's pretty funny.
Well, but you see, that's how he expressed that come on, mom and dad, what are you guys doing here? But he still belongs, you see.
Right.
And so that was important for his maturation, I think. Yeah.
For everybody's, actually. Yeah. I think I think that's pretty important. Now there's one final title I'd like to share, and it was Thoughts Concerning Belief. I believe this is the last session actually that we do. Yeah. What's packed in there? Well,
look, let's just say it like this. What people believe is real, whatever they treat as real. Okay. Mm-hmm. One of the things that you can do in a business, for instance, is that if you can figure out how to talk to your people that work with you in your business, and they can understand what you're trying to make real, then your business will work. Okay, because everybody's gonna say, oh no, this is what we're making real over here. The problem is that if they can't see what you're trying to make real, they're going to do what they think is real. Mm-hmm. And that's always a different thing than what you think is real, unless you can communicate information. Okay. Even
Right.
if you're really diligent about communicating information with people, sometimes they don't have the mind to really wrap their the ability to really wrap their mind around the thing, so they can't make it real exactly.
Hmm.
And the reason is because they have something else that's real in its place, or something else they think is real maybe in its place, in that real spot, that slot for real in their thinking. There's something else they put in there, and maybe it's a fantasy, maybe it's something they learned when they were a little kid, maybe it's something that mom and dad did. Oh man, the list of possibilities is endless.
For sure, it's not the external reality, though.
No, it isn't. No, but yet they treat that thing as as if it's real. They treat it as real, not as if it's real. To them that's a real thing. Okay, here's one that I'm sure you've run into. There are people who are liars. Okay, they tell lies. Okay, now when they're in the midst of telling lies, they're not thinking about anything other than maybe getting out of a thing, or weaving a story so they're not going to be into trouble, or something of that nature. But they don't think about the lie itself. And so that doesn't make good sense. Okay, it just doesn't make good sense. But that's what they do. Okay. Here's one in current political jargon, if you like. There's a segment of the Republican Party that is backing up the Trump idea of that he actually won the election. And that's a fantasy. Okay, look, I don't care who you are. I don't care whether you're a Republican or Democrat. Come on, he lost the election. Bush lost the election, or Gore lost the election. Bush won. It wasn't even that close. There wasn't even that much controversy about it. Trump, you lost. Period. Now go home. Go back to Mar-a-Lago, and have a good time. Enjoy yourself. It's okay. I don't mind. You want to run again? Okay, run again. You might get defeated again, but okay, go for it. I don't mind. But you know what? You lost the election. Why don't we just call it that? Well, the reason why he doesn't want to is because he wants to make that lie, or that unreal thing a real thing. He wants to make that fantasy real. It's not. You can't make a fantasy real. It doesn't fit reality. And so when you believe something in real, it has to actually be there. You have to be able to demonstrate that reality, okay, or it's not a real thing. And so Trump, Republican people, show me where the election was lost. Show me the numbers. Show me the.
I mean, they're just throwing energy into this fantasy that's got no chance of being realized.
Yeah. Okay. The Arizona audit, re-audit, fraud it, whatever you want to call that. Well, think about this. It cost Maricopa County $6 million just for voting machines.
Yeah.
Not to mention however many months of cyber ninja costs that were racked up, that this QAnon guy put in his pocket. Yeah. I mean, she had to pay out some of it too, but I mean, he made money on it. I'll guarantee you.
Yeah.
And for what purpose exactly? He didn't find anything. No. There was nothing there to find. Nope. I mean, and all he had to do is to find. You can check the ballots. You can see where they came from. They're numbered.
Yeah.
It's not any.
That's
trouble.
all they did in the end. Really, was just reconfirm everything that had been confirmed.
Right, because there wasn't any bamboo fibers in it. Come on. The Italians did not. No, come on. The Italians.
Or the Venezuelans, whoever it was.
Yeah, whoever it was, right. No, that none of that happened. Okay, but okay, it's great. If you want to think it happened, I don't mind. But look, you're not a credible individual any longer if you're going to say that those fantasies are real things. That you can't tell the difference. You can't be credible. I mean, that just can't be true. So for us regular, everyday working people, we need to be aware that we're fine as long as we deal with real things.
Yeah.
And if we make things up or something, if we're trying to prove something that we don't really know, we don't have the paperwork, we don't have the numbers in front of us, then it doesn't count. I live in Mexico, as you're aware, and so it's like in Mexico, if you have the paperwork, everything's fine. If you don't have the paperwork, okay, where did this come from?
Nothing's fine.
Yeah, nothing's fine. That's right. Where did you get this?
Right.
Is it stolen? How do I know that it's not stolen? You don't have the paperwork for it. Okay, so that that's just what it is. Okay, you have to follow you follow the paper trail because that paper trail is something that's real. Okay, you have to have the paper trail to make it real. Well, the same thing is true in thought. We have to have the paper trail of knowing how we know that the thing is real. Okay, we have to have that. Otherwise, we're living in kind of a limbo-like world in a way, because we think we're doing the right thing, but we're not really sure. And so our stress levels must go up because we're never ever really sure about any of these things. So for instance, just take a look at this fact in the light of this concept. Okay, there is a decided uptick in violent or angry reactions in the U.S. population. It's a decided uptick.
Absolutely.
Okay, I would submit that it is directly related to the people who are frustrated beyond belief trying to make something fit that doesn't fit in reality. In other words, if you try to take a fantasy and force it into reality, it's going to be frustrating. Okay.
By definition.
Yeah, I have some of these little plastic boxes, and they have snap down thingies on them and so forth, And if you don't line that up just right, you can't snap them down.
You won't get it. Yeah, you won't get it to clip.
It will not happen. Okay, and so you got to line that. It's got to line up with the reality that it's supposed to deal with, right?
Right.
Otherwise, it doesn't work. Well, that's the same thing. It's frustrating unless you have it where it's supposed to be. If you put that thing where it's supposed to be, it's click 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 click. It's easy, right? If you try to put it down in another place, you can't get it on there at all. So it's the same kind of thing. It's if you don't want to have the frustration / anger / fear / freezing and so forth in your life, then guys, deal with the actual threat. And the actual threat in this case is that you're trying to shoehorn a fantasy into reality, and it will never fit. You'll never get it in there. It's a fantasy. By definition, it's not going to fit in reality, guys. It's a fantasy. It doesn't, those two things are different. You can't, it's not going to happen.
I think most people would make an error here, though, and say, well, it's their fault that I'm stressed out. They're the problem.
Yeah, but those people aren't, I'm sorry, but they're not the brightest bulbs in the chandelier, okay? And I'm not really sure that the elevator goes up and down to all the floors for those folks. It might, okay, but when the elevator doors open, they don't get out and exploring. They just say, okay, I don't live here, and they go on, okay? I don't mind that happens. It's their right, okay? But I can observe what the effects are, and the effect is if you're going to blame somebody else for something that you're doing, you're kind of like that doctor that's operating on himself. You have a fool for a patient because you can't blame somebody else for what you're doing. And it's like frustration is something that you're doing. I can't make you frustrated. I can do things that you can get frustrated about, but I make you frustrated. No, you do that on your own. I can't. Right. I do not have access to those dip switches. I can't redirect anything like that. I just can't do it. I've tried. I give people reason, but but I'm not really the one that makes them frustrated.
Right. There's an edge there that you can't cross.
And God knows I've tried. I really have given it all of it. Just can't get there. Oh well.
Oh well. All right. Well, look, this was a nice, long-ranging, far-ranging conversation. So I think we'll cap it here and pick it up in a couple of days with some more Q&A. You good for that?
I'm good for. I'm down. Yeah.
Pleasure as always, John. Great to see you.
I'm learning. I've learned a new word, by gollies. Chinty has been telling me this new word. Sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah, everything is sweet.
I agree. I talk like that too.
Do you? I don't.
Welcome to the younger generation vernacular.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you, Paul. You call me an old guy again, aren't you?
I totally did, and it just kind of slipped out.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the truth. Okay, there we go. It's a real thing. Don't frustrate me here, dude. I got to deal with the
There
reality
you go. Tie it right in. All right. Well, goodbye, everybody. Nice to see you all, and we'll do it again soon.